as we go through this today. For those, how many of you have attended BBSs here at the Chamber before? Okay, good, about half of you. This is going to be a different kind of event. Later on, I am going to be, like Donna, giving you, answering your questions to kind of nightmare scenarios. Can you pass these back? I figure we could use, yes, please. I figure we could use the color this early in the morning. So what I'd like you to do on these pieces of paper is just write down a scenario that you've had, a scenario you fear. Specifically networking. You can ask a question if you like. We'll collect them later. I'll have Ray and Nathan go through them, and we'll just we'll go through a few of them later on in the day. Well, towards the end of the program. Wow. Exactly. But it's going to give me a chance, it's going to give you a chance to kind of get feedback right away from the group, and to give me a chance to react to your questions in real time. I'm available to you. My cards are up here. If you want to talk to me in private afterwards, feel free. But this is a chance not only for you to ask your question for yourself, but for the betterment of the room. Because my guess is that we'll see a lot of similar questions asked here today, this morning. I brought up the samurai, and I kept it because Nathan liked it so much. Okay? How many here are familiar with samurais? Or know of them? Unfortunately, I just saw a really bad samurai movie. But it gave me a very good idea. Okay? Basically, when samurais go out to fight, they carry razor-sharp swords and they fight to the death. Hear a lot of comparisons to that in business. You know, cutting the other guy's throat. Specifically is what comes to mind. Okay? But when they're in their own confines, in their own safety of their group and their companies, they practice with wooden swords so that when it comes time for them to lay it on the line, when they don't have the opportunity to make a mistake, or they're in a high-risk environment, they feel better, they feel safer, because they practice it, they've been there before. So take advantage of that. Practice it yourself, mentally. Maybe you do something within your own company, if you feel safe working in the company you work for, and get this together and practice that, role play some different things. Okay? You want to make the mistakes and do the learning in a safe environment before you get out and make that first impression that you can't take back. As Yogi Berra said, there ain't no second first impressions. All right? Some wise advice from a wise man. Okay, here's the good news, here's the bad news. Bad news first. This is all gray area. You should be congratulated for being here because, again, you know the kind of more basic aspects of networking. But just like when you're a child, there's black and white. You gotta wait till your parents are across the street. You have to eat your vegetables. No, you can't go on this trip. When you're an adult, it's not black and white. You have decisions to make. Do I fix the bathroom or do I save for retirement? Do I send my kid to this school or this school, and why? This is no different. All right? So just keep that in mind. This is why I say, please find out what resonates with you and use it. Perception and networking is tremendously important. We all know that. Okay? Don't be a used car salesman if you're not a used car salesman. Okay? Again, not many people in this room, and apologize to any of you that are used car salesmen. I don't think there are any. If you are a used car salesman, do that. Be that. It succeeds for you for a reason. But if you're not, be who you are. Let's talk about a little idea of confidence versus outrageousness. How many of you in this room have heard about the fact that humans develop memory files? How many of you have heard of that concept? I don't know enough about it to really explain it to you, other than the experiences you have with people, they build up over time, and you remember who they are based on that. So, for example, if you have a positive experience with someone, 9 times out of 10, you have one bad experience, generally speaking, you're going to remember the fact that they're a good person and they had one bad event. Okay? So you want to try to create a memory file. And there's some different tools that you can use in networking to do that. Okay? One that I heard that was really, really great for the men in the room is a lapel flower. How many times have you been to a networking event and a gentleman has a lapel flower in his jacket? 0. Thank you, Maureen. Exactly. All right? Might not work if you're in the construction business, but again, you're creating a memory. It's not necessarily that they're attaching you to the flower, but they're creating something different. Women in the room, same thing. How many times, specifically the women in the room, because the women in the room tend to talk about the other women, how they dress more than the men do, at least that's what I see when I'm out there. Woman walks into a room and she's dressed provocatively. What goes through your head? No marketing is bad marketing. No advertising is bad advertisement. You're going to remember that. I'm not telling you to wear a lapel flower or not, or to dress provocatively or not, but that will get you remembered. Now, do you want to be the guy? Do you want to be the guy showing up in the neon orange suit at a black tie event? Probably not. But again, balance that. Think about that. Okay? And I'll give you an example of what I mean, because this stuff doesn't show up right away. There's a guy in a bus, and he's traveling downtown, and he gets on, and there's no seats. All the seats are taken. So he walks up to this elderly woman, and he asks for her seat. He's a middle-aged guy. He's perfectly fit, pretty cut and dry. But at the time, what he was doing was perfectly the social norm. And this woman refused to get up, and that was perfectly against the social norm. Nowadays, that's completely different. Okay, obviously referring to a bus in Birmingham, but keep in mind the perception versus the reality, what you're getting into. I'm not trying to compare the two events. It's just, again, the idea of perception and right versus wrong. Here's the good news. A lot of bad news. Here's the good news. This stuff is all free. You guys came today. You registered. You spent money for that. Everything I'm going to tell you is free, and it takes little time. And honestly, most of the techniques you're going to learn will actually save you time and save you money. And we'll get to those in a little bit. I've broken this up into 3 sections. Before the event, during the event, after the event. And then we'll talk a little bit about the generalities while the cards are being gone through. The quote from Ben Franklin there, I'm sure you've all heard. Okay, some very specific techniques I want you to use, or I'll suggest to you before the event. Be selective. How many of you are overwhelmed by the networking event invites that you get? You have many, many, many networking opportunities, whether formal or informal. The first thing I would suggest is be selective. Okay, decide to go. Don't just go for the sake of going. Don't just go for the sake of showing up. Okay? The flip side to that is when you don't show up, and this happens to me for myself in the chamber, and I see it with other people, when you miss an event, people go, oh, we really missed you at the other event, at that last event. Wish you were there. Would have been great to see you. It creates an air of excitement. When Brad's not at an event, where's Brad? He's a great guy. I like talking to him. Those words have never been uttered. But
They might. Just hope.
But you do create a sense of excitement when you don't show up, just as if you do. So be selective, because if you're overwhelmed and you really don't want to be at the event because you've been to 4 that week, it's pointless. People will pick up on that. I had an event last night with a group I love to go to. It ended last night at 9:30. The executive director, who was going to come to this event, called me at 7 this morning and said he couldn't come. I decided not to go because I want to be fresh for you here today. So I think I made the right decision based on Mark's call this morning. For networking events, when you go, be early. This event is a perfect example. Okay? This event starts, the speaker's supposed to talk, a program starts about 8:30. From 8 to 8:30, there's a networking opportunity there. If you show up at 8:20, you lose out on that valuable networking experience. I've done it. I've done both. I've showed up early and showed up late. But if you're going to get up early anyway, and you're going to be here anyway and invest the time, show up and get the most out of it. Don't just run out the door after the program's over. If you have time, if your business schedule allows, some of the contact making after these events